is Xennial Gamer, and we are bringing back the Auto Win series. Guys, today we're talking about the single strongest offensive team in the game. Bad news is it needs 3 net 5s. Good news is Summoner's War does things like SWC scrolls and 7-year scrolls, and a lot of you guys probably have this team just sitting in storage right now. Maybe you got to throw a few devils in. Maybe you're short one monster, and we'll talk about some alternatives. There are some ways to work around not having all 3 of these monsters, but first things first, we're simply going to show you the team. So guys, the single strongest offensive team in Summoner's War is Feng, Taranys, and Velajuel. Now, not only is this the strongest team in Summoner's War, it's one of the easiest to build. The rune quality requirements are low. Now, I'll tell you, my rune quality here is fairly high, but the actual requirements to build the team, not that crazy. So, first things first, let's take a look at it in action. Guys, Sleepy Hyena is currently a G3 guild. This was my last Guild War option left, but okay, right there you can already see I took huge damage. Carcano procced, Savannah did her thing, everything, right? Now we are going to put the Soul Protect on the Vela here, and the specific reason for that is because of the Savannah S2, which often goes into the Fang since he was the lowest health at that point. I did not want her to strip the Soul Protect and turn it into dots. Now I'm going to get to cycle a bit in front right here. Kaki's going to do his thing, gets revenged, and right there Kaki's damage is already down because of the defense break, so we're actually going to go into the Carcano here. We didn't really do anything to him, but it doesn't matter at this point. We'll see if we can get the Kaki. We got the lucky kill on the Kaki, but that did not matter either. This should delete the Carcano, and here we go. Now Fang's just going to do Fang things, and Savannah is very suicidal, guys. Savannah does not like life on this earth. Alright, so actually the team you see right here, this is going to be my next auto win video, by the way, guys. It's going to be this Wusa Rika Gani, but we're going to cut away from this, just a little teaser for a future video, and we're going to talk about why Feng Taranys Vela is so freaking OP. Alright guys, so here's the deal. Whenever you're building an offensive team, you want to create some synergy. If it's a turn 2 team, you want it to synergize, meaning all the monsters work together, support each other, and complement each other. If it's a turn 1 team, you basically want all the monsters to be able to set each other up to do enough damage to kill the enemy before the enemy acts. So Feng Taranys Vela, definitely a turn 2 team. You can see 96 base speed, 99 base speed, and now Vela has been boosted. It's 100 base speed, but the other thing you may notice, my Vela is 194. My Taranys is 206, and my Feng is, that's not Feng, and my Feng is 210. Now, nice thing about this team, you're going to run it super slow. The idea here is to just take the opponent's best shot on your chin and come back out fighting. The team itself, we've got immunity and cleansing from the Vela. We've got a defense lead from the Fang with 3 monsters that can all do damage scaled to defense, and we've got sustain from the Fang as well. The Fang counterattacks aren't even that big of a deal in this team because you're running 2 wind units, so you can't control which unit gets attacked, but the counterattacks are nice. Now the other thing is we also get the defense buff from Taranys, which once again matters for all 3 monsters. So your damage output is super high, and yet you're running 3 monsters that are super tanks. Now, the other reason that this team is so OP is because what is common on most of the defenses you see these days, it's going to be kind of, depending on where you are in the game, you're usually going to see a lot of Savannahs, which this team counters completely. The reason we've got Savannah out right now, she's not fully ruined, by the way, guys. The reason we've got Savannah out right now is because I want to show you her skill 3. Rider increases the attack, blah, blah, blah. We don't care about that. Weakens the enemy's defense for 2 turns if the enemy's defense is lower than your attack power. So what that means is that Savannah cannot defense break your team. Unless she's got like 3,500 attack, which means she has no other stats whatsoever, she's not going to get a defense break on any of your monsters. Without the defense break, it's going to be that much harder for them to die. If by some miracle of billion procs, you actually do lose a monster, Taranys just resurrects it right back. No big deal. So what we've got here is Fang, arguably the single most OP siege offense monster in the game to begin with, along with 2 monsters that support him incredibly and still are OP in their own right. We also have 2 defense breaks now with the Velajuel new buff, so he can defense break on skill 2. We have a strip from the Velajuel skill 1. We have stuns from The Taranys skill 1, I mean, this team really has everything. Like, talk about synergy, you put everything into one kit. Now, the other thing that's really nice about this team is it's kind of easy to rune. I was gonna say super easy, that's not fair. I know there's some people who are still just kind of starting out, some earlier game players. Maybe you got lucky and summoned all 3 of these, you don't have the runes yet. But for most people who are mid-game or later, these are 3 of the easiest monsters in the game to rune, and that's because they just don't need speed. And on top of that, you can get away without will runes on the Feng. Now, if you're gonna run the Feng without will runes, he does need this max resistance. If he doesn't have max res, I do strongly advise that he has will runes. So this is the build I run on my Feng, and again, I want to emphasize, I've got good runes because I'm an endgame player and because this is a team I use every single siege. Literally, I use this team every siege, every guild war. I use this team 6 to 7 times per day, minimum. Well, maximum, actually, just total, that's it. That's all you can do. But I use this team 6 to 7 times per day, and if it loses once every 2 weeks, it's a miracle. Like, it is that good, guys. Now, basically, you're going to want your Feng to do as much damage as he can. All 3 monsters do big offense, but Feng tends to be the primary damage dealer in this team because he's also the hardest to kill. So I've got my Feng on triple defense. I do have him on the destroy. Excuse me, I've got my Feng on double defense res, but the res has 31 defense. So I've got double defense resistance. Obviously, again, max resistance. One really important thing for Feng is he needs accuracy. Now, I have 16 more skill 1 accuracy here. My recommendation for Feng is you try and get him at 40 accuracy or higher. So I'm 45 with my artifact. The other thing with Feng is he needs tons and tons of additional damage. Artifacts, my Feng does not have that. So obviously it's not that important, right?
A few moments later.
But if you look at the additional damage artifacts here, it's just crazy. 26% defense, 6% blah, blah, blah. Now, for your Taranys, you are probably going to want a build like this, but you may not be able to. So I will tell you that for most of the time I've ever had Taranys, I ran him on a crit rate slot 4, and I currently run him on a crit rate slot 4 in RTA. He still does tons of damage. But remember, this is about synergy. The role of Taranys primarily is to provide defense buffs and revives and the occasional stun and provoke in this team. The secondary role is to be a big damage dealer. It is really nice when you can set up a Taranys snipe with a Feng defense break. Keep in mind also Feng's passive allows his attack bar to move forward. So in a perfect world, your Feng is going to be 1 or 2 speed faster than your Taranys anyway, so he can set up defense breaks and also so he can put up his counter attack before the defense buff arrives. But even if your Feng is slower than Taranys just due to rune quality or whatever, Feng will move in front of Taranys the first time he gets hit. So really not a big deal which one of these 2 is faster. A little bit nicer if Feng's in front, but not a huge deal. Anyway, for your Taranys, again, you'd like to have enough HP to take a Ciara bomb. My Taranys really probably doesn't. He's very much on the line. That's just because I have him in this crit damage build right now, and honestly, I prefer the crit rate build. He's in crit damage because I use so many crit rate runes. I didn't have a crit rate rune to spare for him. And again, this team does not get my best runes. So we're at 100% crit rate. I do recommend getting to 100 if you can. I've had a lot of times where a missed crit really made a fight a lot more dangerous than it needed to be. But honestly, 85 and higher crit is fine. A little bit of accuracy, really helpful for him for the provokes. And then from there, you just need lots of defense. And one thing I will remind you, don't forget the attack, because half of his skill 2, the wild blow damage, comes from attack. The other half comes from defense. But of course, the defense is most important. So in terms of priority, for your Taranys, must be Violent Will. But in terms of how you prioritize the stats, most important is defense, followed by crit rate, followed by HP, followed by accuracy, followed by attack by speed. By crit damage last. Honestly, the life drain's not super necessary. As with the runes, he doesn't get my best artifacts outside of RTA. Anyway, my RTA build is different. But lots of extra crit damage, some defense increasing effects, stuff like that. Skill 3 and skill 1 accuracy is nice as well. Does not need skill 2 accuracy. Also of note, Taranys' lowest stat by far is his attack. So if you have lots of really big defense subs in your runes and not a lot of attack, you give him a couple of flat attack artifacts and you gain more value. So for example, if you give him a defense artifact, you're only gaining like 12% defense, but if you give him an attack artifact, you're gaining like 18% attack, something like that. Okay, so you guys have seen me fight with the team a couple of times. What I have not yet told you is what to avoid. There are a couple of teams, and only a couple, literally only a couple, that you cannot bring the Feng Taranys Vela into. One of those teams is Ciara Martina Shayna. Because of the strips and the overall CC of this team, if your Taranys happens to die twice, and if the Xena is faster, so Xena will attack your Taranys and steal the immunity. That lands a defense break. Martina will get the first kill, and then Ciara will bomb it out. If you lose your Taranys on turn 1, this team's probably in trouble. So you do want to avoid anything with Xena Martina for this team. Now, the other thing that you want to avoid, and I don't think we have any of these on our defenses here, so I can't really show it to you, but anything with Odin or anything with ignore defense. So keep in mind, you're running a defense scaling team, so if there's an Odin in there, and especially if there's a secondary snipe with the Odin, it ignores your defense, you have low HP units, and you're going to get deleted. I haven't ever seen a Kali on Siege defense, but maybe there's something like a Carcano Kali Bastet. It's an offense I run. I mean, it'd be silly to run double fire defense, but whatever. The Kali would be really dangerous for you as well, especially Carcano procs. Again, your Taranys gets deleted. But if you look at teams like this, even against this Kinky right here, I do think you're fine. We got Strip, we got CC, we got Kinky, and I still think you're fine. So Iris going turn 1 gets the stun, and oh, Carnal getting the stun as well. But there you go. That's why all 3 of our monsters are on Violent. We do get the proc out, and at that point it's GG. And also the Velajuel was never stripped, so he's going to be able to just cleanse that Taranys right there. So we're going to go ahead and put our Soul Protect up. We're going to put the Soul Protect on Feng because he's the max res monster, and Iris usually is not built with max accuracy. There you go. The Iris is now basically dead because the Carnal's not going to be able to CC more than 1 unit. And so, ooh, Fang just doing Fang things. Okay, the Vela's going to get the kill on the Iris, so I'll just start defense breaking the Carnal right here. Kinky's just going to proc a lot, but notice we didn't die. And now the Iris is dead, so now we do die. But maybe we get a crit, maybe not. There you go, 25k damage. Look how much those life drain artifacts coming into play. I don't think it really mattered at this point. I no longer needed my Taranys. Honestly, Fang can deal with that Kinky easily by himself. It's nice to have all 3 units, but it wasn't important. So Taranys hanging on by a thread right there. Vela obviously not going to do much here. We're just going to go for the skill 1 stun. Probably won't. Ooh, lucky. That was just lucky. I was going to say probably won't land it, but that was just lucky. But honestly, the Fang's just going to handle the Kinky one-on-one. It doesn't even matter. Kinky can do his revenges, but I've got immunity up. Maybe I lose the Taranys, so it's not ideal in Guild War, because obviously you'd rather not lose a monster, but it doesn't really matter. And this is obviously a violent Kinky. He's going off a little bit here, but it doesn't really matter. Okay, so here is our last build, the Velajuel. And guys, right at the start, I told you want 27k HP, right? Well, I ain't got it. Again, these monsters don't get my best runes, and they don't need them. So if I had 25, 27k HP, this team would be better. Even if the Vela was not on a crit damage build, this team would be better. I don't need all this crit damage. Fang by himself is enough damage. The reason these monsters are on crit damage runes, I think I said this earlier, is because I used so many other crit rate runes already. This was all I had left over. These were like my later build monsters because they didn't need my top priority runes. But with the Vela, it's the exact same formula. I won't repeat it. It's the exact same formula and the exact same priorities that you give to your Taranys. You're basically looking for defense, HP, and crit rate, and then all the other stats you want them, but they're secondary. It's defense, HP, and crit rate that matter for this guy. And then again, in terms of artifacts, you guys can see what I have right here. Damage reduction from water is nice, especially if you're running this into a Mo Long type team, because the Vela is already super squishy. Things like defense increasing effect are nice. Additional damage by X is totally unnecessary for Vela because he's a single target hitter. I'd rather see crit damage type stuff or damage dealt to specific elements. So again, you can see the artifacts I'm using don't make a ton of sense on my Vela. Once again though guys, you can bring this team into basically anything that does not have ignore defense. So you don't want to bring it in against Bombers, you don't want to bring it in against Odin, and then you don't want to bring it in against Xena Martinez. Also, we're not really worried about the Savannah right here. We can literally ignore Savannah for this entire fight. But there's not a lot of value in me going into Juno because of attribute disadvantage, and Ryu still has his passive up, so I can't do anything to the Ryu. So I'll go ahead and attack the Savannah. But it's not because I'm afraid of Savannah, it's just because I can't attack either of the other units yet. From here, we're just going to get our buffs up. Now, we're far enough ahead that we can just defense break the... we didn't get the defense break on the Ryu. Doesn't matter, but we didn't get it. There's no point in me going into the Juno here still because Juno's potentially going to get 2 debuffs off my S2 and then just heal. So we'll go ahead and dismount the Savannah. And again, I want to stress, we don't care about Savannah. We're attacking her because that's all we have to attack. But we'll go ahead and delete the Savannah, make it a 3v2. At this point, again, you can see there's really no worries whatsoever. The Ryu's dead now on the next hit. Actually, yeah, no passing. And then it's just 3v1 on the Juno, and yeah, Juno's OP, guys, but Juno's not going to do anything here on a 3v1. So maybe we get a crit. No, we get the glancing hit. And that's why I didn't want to hit the Juno earlier, because she would just heal off, but it doesn't really make any difference. There you go. Never any risk. Okay, guys, so you've seen the team, you've seen the builds. Now let's talk about what to do if you don't have all these builds. So there are some replaceable monsters in this team. Now, the one that is hardest to replace is honestly the Taranys. He is replaceable, but he's the hardest to replace for the teams to still make as much sense. Feng you can actually replace with Vigor, or you can replace him with most things that defense break skill 1, and I honestly think you could probably replace him with the Fire Panda and gain that second cleanser. Fire Panda can do some kind of decent damage, less than Feng, of course, so if you're running the Fire Panda in his place and that's a free-to-play option, you would then definitely want the damage builds on your Taranys and your Velajuel. Whereas if you're running a Vigor, you can put the Vigor in a really high damage build and keep everything the same. Anything else, honestly, in place of the Feng, anything that gives a defense lead is going to be really nice, but you could also probably get away with using a Molong here. In terms of other replacement options, remember, Feng is providing sustain and damage to your team, so you're looking for units that do sustain and damage. So like I said, Vigor is really good, the Fire Panda is good, but really anything that can give you sustain and damage, honestly, Perna could potentially work in that role, especially now that Perna has a secondary strip, and Perna also provides stuns. Now, for the Velajuel, you can replace him with basically anything that has cleanse and or immunity. Ideally, it's going to have cleanse and immunity, and there's not as many options of those. Delphoy, I believe, gives you both cleanse and immunity. It also has a skill 2 reset. Delphoy would be kind of interesting here. The downside is obviously the team being triple wind. It would be hard for you to kill any kind of fire monster, where Velajuel does your damage on the fire monster right now. But I think you could probably still, with good artifacts on the Fang, you'd probably be okay. Amelia would actually be amazing in this team. The only thing is, if you have Amelia, but you also have these monsters, you might want to use Amelia with a Bulwark. Luis would be another really good one down here, and then I think the Riley could work as well. So you guys get the idea as we go through this list. Now again, Taranys is the hardest to replace because he's the only monster in the game that actually gives you revive and defense buffs. So when you replace the Taranys, you're going to lose the defense buff, which greatly reduces the damage on your Fang. Now, one option to replace the Taranys is the Nana, because Nana does give you revives, gives you a secondary defense breaker, and can do some decent damage. But I've tested Nana quite a bit, and without the defense buff, the damage on the team gets really difficult, because now Fang does less damage, Vela does less damage, and the Nana doesn't do much damage. So I would honestly rather see something that does a defense buff and supports my Fang a little bit more here. So again, we're going to come into the collection, we're just going to search for increased defense and see which monsters we own. Ariel to me is kind of an intriguing one right here. So we don't get the revive, but we get the massive cleanses, we get the ability to exchange debuffs for recovery, and then it's a single target defense buff, so you don't get the damage out of the Vela as well. But I do think Ariel's kind of interesting. The Water Totemist, Aaliyah, I think would actually be amazing in this team. I just don't have her. Eladriel is another one. Actually, Eladriel gives you the revive and the defense buff, so I lied. Taranys is no longer the only one in the game who does it. Eladriel is only a single target defense buff, but you can still make that work. But there you go, guys. So you're just going to scroll through the list, see what you have, and keep in mind that you're looking for monsters that perform those roles. But that's going to be it for today's video, guys. Strongest auto win team in the game. Mark it down. Fang, Taranys, Velajuel. If you got those three monsters, pull them out of storage, rune them up, devil them up, and thank me later. So guys, as always, please remember to smash that like button. Make sure it turns blue. Don't smash it twice. Smash that like button. Make sure you subscribe. Turn on the bell notifications, guys. Help the channel grow. It helps out the creators a lot. Very much appreciate it, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you next time. Hey, it is Xennial. Oh, no, wait. This is the outro. My bad. Hey guys, if you want to see more content, please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on the bell notifications. It's your support that makes me want to create continuing content. I thank you guys for the support, as always, and we'll see you in the next video.